Because I've finally caught up with this South Park episode, and the bit I love about it is the brand management and the sequence.
Leaving! We'll go find some quiet place where we can be normal people. Come on, wife! We want privacy.
In fact, South Park has just knocked them out. Harry last year wrote a book called Spare, which smashed his brother.
Meghan Markle thought she had it all figured out. The Harper's Bazaar photo shoot was supposed to be her big moment, the comeback that would finally change the narrative. Soft lighting, elegant poses, an interview written like she was some kind of misunderstood icon. For a few hours, it looked like it might actually work. Then South Park saw it, and what happened next didn't just embarrass her. It exposed something she's been trying to hide for years. Here's how one magazine interview turned into the biggest Hollywood meltdown of the year, and why Meghan can't escape what came next. Trust me, this gets way worse than you think. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you're going to want to see where this goes. Let's get into it. Harper's Bazaar wasn't just another magazine interview. This was Meghan's carefully planned return to the spotlight, and she wanted everyone to know it. The magazine editor had one job: turn Meghan into a star with this cover feature. They went all in. The photo shoot had everything you'd expect from a major comeback.
Normal people, this attention is so hard. Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does
Moody lighting, soft makeup that made her look almost ethereal, those slow, elegant poses that screamed, "I'm back and I'm important." This wasn't supposed to be a casual celebrity interview where someone shows up, chats for an hour, and leaves. No, this was a full production. This was a statement piece designed to shift how the world saw Meghan Markle. And here's the thing. The interview itself read like a royal storybook. Every single line was crafted to paint Meghan as this misunderstood icon who was finally fighting to reclaim her voice. The writer didn't just describe Meghan's thoughts, they elevated them to almost mythical status. They made ordinary moments sound profound, turning simple observations into grand declarations. It was like Meghan was navigating some epic journey that the rest of us couldn't possibly understand. The language felt heavy, almost theatrical. Words like rebirth and purpose got thrown around like Meghan was going through some kind of spiritual transformation instead of just doing another
Mother-in-law, his sister-in-law, the media, and many, many others in one giant whinge. Now, I don't know what he and his
magazine interview. It was theatrical, it was poetic, and honestly, it was a lot. Get this, they literally called her the true voice of modern royalty. That one line right there became instant meme material. People screenshot it, shared it, laughed at it, because here's a woman who left the royal family, moved to California, distanced herself from the institution, and now a magazine's calling her the voice of modern royalty. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. It sounded less like journalism and more like Meghan's PR team had written her own press release and handed it to the writer. The whole thing felt staged, like every word had been approved before it went to print. But let's talk about those photos for a second because something felt genuinely off about them. They weren't the usual bright, glossy magazine shots you'd expect from a major publication. Instead, they were strangely dark, almost somber. The lighting created shadows that made the whole vibe feel heavy and melancholic.
Is reportedly overwhelmed and upset by that cartoon. Look who's here now. Royal watcher Neil Sean.
Meghan's expression looked distant, almost hollow, like she was staring through the camera instead of at it. You barely saw a smile anywhere. No confidence radiating off the page, no joy in her eyes. She looked like she was trying to embody this deep, misunderstood soul who'd been through unimaginable hardship and was now emerging from the darkness. But people didn't see a confident woman ready to move forward and reclaim her narrative. They saw someone who looked trapped in a character she'd created for herself, unable to break free from the victim story she kept telling. For a few hours after the magazine dropped online, it looked like the new narrative might actually work. Meghan's supporters immediately shared the interview across social media, praised the photos for being raw and authentic, and talked about how brave she was for opening up yet again. Her fans ate it up, but outside that bubble, the reaction was starting to split hard. Some people found the whole thing pretentious and over the top.
around virtually the whole world, not least because of that mockery was so accurate. I mean, I can't imagine they've got...
Others thought it felt manipulated and calculated, like every word had been carefully selected to make Meghan look like both a victim and a hero at the same time. Someone who'd suffered but was now rising above it all. The internet started picking it apart almost immediately, dissecting the language, questioning the photos, pointing out contradictions. And then South Park's writers saw it, and that's when everything changed. Within days of that Harper's Bazaar interview dropping, the South Park writers turned it into one of their coldest takedowns in years. And listen, South Park has roasted pretty much everyone at this point. No celebrity is safe. But this particular episode, this wasn't just a quick jab or a throwaway joke. The writers went for a direct hit. They didn't just mock Meghan's words or poke fun at a few quotes. The entire I'm Reborn brand she was desperately trying to push got torched. Every carefully constructed narrative, every poetic phrase, every theatrical photo,
which has ruffled the feathers of the Sussex clan, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. But before we continue, please subscribe.
South Park grabbed it all and turned it into comedy gold. The brutality of it all started with how they recreated Meghan's poses from the Harper's Bazaar photo shoot, with these exaggerated sad eyes and slow, heavy breathing. Picture this. Cartoon Meghan standing there, wind blowing through her hair, looking off into the distance with this overly serious expression while music plays in the background. It was almost shot for shot identical to the magazine photos, except amplified to the point of absurdity. The animation captured that hollow, distant look she had in the real photos, but cranked it up so much that you couldn't help but laugh at how ridiculously over the top it all was. But South Park really nailed it with this running gag where cartoon Meghan keeps giving these speeches about wanting privacy and being left alone. Sounds reasonable, right? Except every single time she talks about craving a quiet life, another spotlight literally appears behind her. Then another camera pops up. Then reporters show up out of nowhere.
After the success of the Worldwide Privacy Tour, presenter Dan Wooten revealed that the South Park creators might be working on storyboards for a new episode.
She's standing there saying, "I just want to be left alone," while actively seeking attention in every frame. The joke writes itself because that's exactly what people have been saying about the real Meghan for years. How can you claim you want privacy while constantly doing interviews, releasing statements, appearing on magazine covers, and crafting these emotional narratives about your life? Get this. They even parodied the Harper's Bazaar photo shoot itself in the episode. South Park animated Meghan standing in this theatrical wind, wearing a dress that looked almost identical to the one from the magazine cover. While she's posing, the cartoon characters around her are trying to figure out if she's waiting for a crown she never actually received. Fans immediately started posting side-by-side comparisons online. The real Harper's Bazaar photos next to the South Park animation. And yeah, the accuracy was absolutely brutal. You could see exactly what the writers were mocking, and it hit because it wasn't exaggerated that much from reality.
To put a stop to the scathing parody, he reportedly reached out to the show's producers, pleading with them to pull the episode from air.
One of the sharpest moments came when the animated interviewer starts praising cartoon Meghan with lines that were nearly word for word from the actual Harper's Bazaar article. The interviewer calls her the true voice of modern royalty with this completely straight face. But instead of the audience in the cartoon being moved or impressed, they just stare in confusion. Nobody's buying it. That scene alone proved the South Park writers understood something crucial. Meghan's interview wasn't connecting with real people. It was only connecting with her own PR fantasy and the small circle of supporters who believed everything she said without question. The episode didn't just mock the interview, it mocked the entire ecosystem around it. The overly serious tone, the self-important attitude, the way everything got framed as if Meghan was going through some historic struggle that future generations would study. South Park stripped away all that pretense.
Well, look, Sam, I want to play you the first of these South Park clips and get you to react. So this one...
And showed what it actually looked like from the outside. Exhausting, repetitive, and kind of ridiculous. What really stung for Meghan was that millions of viewers agreed with every single joke. The episode went viral almost instantly. Clips spread across every social media platform. People who hadn't even watched South Park in years were sharing scenes and laughing at how how accurate the parody felt. South Park doesn't attack randomly. They don't just pick a celebrity out of a hat and decide to roast them for fun. The writers go after specific moments that feel exaggerated, overly polished, or practically begging to be mocked. And Meghan's Harper's Bazaar interview, it checked all the boxes. This wasn't your typical celebrity feature where someone sits down, talks about their latest project, shares a few personal stories, and calls it a day. No, this was a full-blown theatrical production disguised as journalism. The whole thing came across as staged from the first sentence to the last photo.
I don't care about collecting one failure after another, no matter what the media says. And honestly, if I'm being real with you, a narcissist probably won't.
The language honestly sounded more like prophecy than an actual conversation. Instead of letting Meghan speak naturally, each line got framed in this grand, sweeping way. Statements became declarations. Thoughts turned into profound wisdom. It was like reading a script where Meghan played the lead role in her own epic saga. The interview painted her as this modern princess navigating a cruel world that didn't appreciate her brilliance, her vision, or her sacrifices. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't balanced, it was pure mythology building, and people saw right through it. Things got messy when people started calling out the massive contradiction at the heart of the whole piece. How can you sit there and talk about wanting privacy, about needing space, about being tired of the spotlight, while simultaneously releasing another magazine story built entirely around your emotional journey? It doesn't add up. If you genuinely wanted privacy, you'd stop doing interviews. You'd stop appearing on covers.
Roasts ever. In this South Park-style satire called Lessons in Narcissism from Meghan, the show doesn't hold back.
You'd stop crafting these narratives about your struggles and your rebirth. But Meghan keeps doing all of that while insisting she just wants to be left alone. The disconnect couldn't be more obvious, and the internet wasted no time pointing it out. But one specific moment in that Harper's Bazaar article set people off hard. How Meghan's entrance to a restaurant got described, listen to this, like she was stepping into a scene from some royal drama. The language made it seem like cameras should have been rolling, like music should have swelled in the background, like everyone in the restaurant should have stopped and stared in awe. It was absurdly over the top for what was just a woman walking into a restaurant. That single description became a lightning rod for criticism because it perfectly captured what was wrong with the whole interview. It read less like real life and more like someone writing fan fiction about Meghan's existence. Comments absolutely blew up after people read that part.
It all began with yet another Meghan Markle moment that had everyone talking, and not for the right reasons. This time, it wasn't.
Social media lit up with reactions. People called it fan fiction, and not even good fan fiction. Others joked that Meghan's PR team must have handed the journalist a script with instructions on exactly how to describe each moment. Some readers started questioning whether this was even journalism anymore, or just a paid advertisement disguised as an editorial piece. The skepticism spread fast because nothing about the interview came across as authentic or spontaneous. It all seemed calculated, rehearsed, and designed to push a very specific narrative. What made it even worse was the tone throughout the entire piece. It wasn't just one or two flowery sentences scattered here and there. The whole article maintained this heavy, melodramatic energy from start to finish. Words like destiny, purpose, misunderstood, and journey got thrown around constantly. Meghan wasn't just talking about her life. She was narrating an origin story.
What I thought was so glaring and so brilliant about it is it's true. You know, for people who pay PR,
she wasn't sharing experiences. She was delivering monologues. And for an audience that's already heard her tell variations of the same story multiple times across different platforms, it grew exhausting. By the time South Park's writers saw all of this, the internet had already done half their work for them. The mockery was practically writing itself. Those close to Meghan say she absolutely lost it when she saw the South Park episode. We're not talking about a little frustration or annoyance that she could brush off after a few hours. This was a full meltdown. She felt blindsided by the whole thing, completely caught off guard that a comedy show would take her Harper's Bazaar interview and turn it into material for one of their episodes. She was embarrassed, genuinely shocked that what was supposed to be a simple comeback moment had spiraled into this massive wave of global mockery. This wasn't the reaction she expected. She thought the feature would reset her narrative, remind the world why they should care about her story. Instead, it became a punchline that millions were laughing at.
Oh, you wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family. Right. So you're a journalist. We just want to be normal people.
One insider claims Meghan kept walking around her house repeating the same questions over and over. Why would they do this? Why now? She couldn't wrap her head around the timing, like maybe the whole thing was part of some bigger conspiracy against her. But the reality? The parody went viral because it reflected what a huge chunk of the public was already thinking. South Park didn't plant those ideas in anyone's head. They just took what was already floating around online, the skepticism, the eye-rolling, the frustration with Meghan's constant media appearances while claiming she wants privacy, and put it on screen. The episode worked because it put into animation what thousands had been saying in comment sections for months. Her team tried everything to calm her down. They told her this would blow over, that the news cycle would move on in a few days, that engaging with it would only make things worse. But the fallout wasn't slowing down. It was gaining speed beyond what any PR plan could catch.
Jar of jam with a proud smile, looking like she's about to release a cookbook called Royal Preserves, The Art of Fame and Fruit.
Every hour brought new clips, fresh memes, additional commentary. The parody wasn't fading into the background like her team hoped. It was picking up momentum, building steam across every platform. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere you looked, someone was talking about it, sharing clips, making jokes. The team gave Meghan clear instructions. Do not comment publicly. Don't address it. Don't acknowledge it exists. Because anything she said at that point would just drive attention back to the parody and extend the story's life cycle. Silence was the only strategic option left. But staying quiet creates its own problems, doesn't it? Not responding made her seem powerless, like she couldn't defend herself, like she had to just sit there and take the hits without fighting back. And if there's one thing Meghan hates above all else, it's appearing weak or unable to control the situation. She spent years trying to control her narrative.
We just want to be normal people. All this attention is so hard. Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV?
Shape how the public sees her, position herself as someone with agency and strength. Now she had to stay silent while the world laughed. Then things escalated because late-night hosts started piling on. The South Park episode opened the floodgates. Once one major comedy show went after Meghan, others saw it as permission to do the same. Jokes started appearing in monologues. Segments dissecting the Harper's Bazaar feature began popping up. Memes comparing her real photos from the magazine to the South Park animation flooded social media. And honestly, the comparisons were brutal. Viewers posted side-by-side screenshots showing just how accurate South Park's parody actually was. The mockery wasn't coming from one direction at this point. It was coming from everywhere, and Meghan couldn't escape it no matter where she looked. Hollywood may smile publicly and say all the right things, but behind closed doors, executives are absolutely ruthless. They don't care about fairness or feelings. What matters is what sells.
New book, wow! Oh, it's fantastic. They even come to Australia in the cartoons, so don't miss that.
What trends and what could potentially damage their bottom line. And nothing sets off alarm bells in their heads faster than watching a celebrity turn into a meme. When the South Park parody hit and went viral, several producers, brand partners, and streaming executives did something interesting. They actually sat down and watched the episode. But they weren't watching to see if Meghan got treated unfairly or if the jokes went too far. Their goal was figuring out if she'd gone radioactive, the kind of celebrity that the public actively dislikes, the kind who generates more negative attention than positive buzz. In Hollywood logic, getting mocked by South Park isn't just embarrassing. It's a warning shot. It signals that something's gone wrong with your public image. When South Park targets you, it means the audience is irritated with you. It means your carefully crafted persona has been overcooked to the point where it's feeling fake. It means you're drifting dangerously close to self-parody, where you've grown so predictable and formulaic that comedy writers can...
Trying to make ourselves into a brand just turned us into products. We don't need to be a brand, do we? If it's true,
nail your entire brand in a single episode. One insider put it pretty bluntly. If South Park goes after you, the audience is already halfway gone. That's the unspoken rule in the industry. Once you turn into comedy fodder, winning back genuine public affection takes enormous effort. Industry decision makers also began asking uncomfortable questions about the Harper's Bazaar piece itself. They wondered why it came across as so staged, so emotionally heavy, so theatrical. Why did every sentence sound like it was written for a movie trailer instead of a real conversation? Some questioned whether Meghan actually understands American audiences anymore. Americans tend to prefer authenticity over carefully scripted monologues. Real moments connect, not performances disguised as vulnerability. The more polished and rehearsed something feels, the less connection it creates. And that feature felt rehearsed from start to finish. A few people in power noticed a pattern that created even more concern.
And especially the category of satire protects them, and they're public figures, so the threshold is very, very high to have any sort of libel.
Meghan seems stuck in this loop, reinvention after reinvention, each one louder and more theatrical than the last. First, she was the actress who married into royalty. Then, she was the misunderstood duchess escaping a toxic institution. Then, she was the podcast host sharing her truth. Then, she was the Netflix documentary subject. Now, she's the Harper's Bazaar cover star experiencing a rebirth. Each version comes with the same emotional beats, the same victim-turned-survivor narrative, just packaged differently. And audiences are exhausted from hearing the same story told in slightly different ways. Curiosity has faded. Interest has died out. The nightmare scenario that industry insiders whisper about had officially kicked in. This is what happens when the entire entertainment ecosystem begins using a celebrity as bait for clicks and engagement. Late night shows write jokes about you. Commentary channels on YouTube make hour-long breakdown videos.
Meghan Markle said she cried over South Park, but the rest of the world just laughed. But where this all began was in February of 2021 when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle...
TikTok creators jump on the trend with their own takes. Every outlet sees your name as an easy way to drive traffic and boost numbers. Once that cycle begins, breaking out of it takes years. You stop being a person and transform into a content mill where your every move generates mockery instead of genuine interest. What made decision makers even more uneasy was what they saw coming next. If South Park successfully mocked Meghan, other comedy programs would almost certainly follow their lead. Saturday Night Live might do a sketch. Other animated shows might add their own parodies. British comedy panels would definitely have something to say. The pile-on effect can destroy a celebrity's credibility faster than almost anything else. And once you lose credibility in Hollywood, getting it back requires years of strategic moves and genuine reinvention, not just another glossy magazine feature with moody photos. Listen, South Park didn't spare Prince Harry either.
Harry was paid $20 million to have a book about him as a memoir. Now the joke has come back at them with South Park creating parodies of them in their latest episode.
He wasn't cast as a villain or some evil mastermind pulling strings behind the scenes. No, the show did something way worse to his image. They made him look like a confused bystander in his own life, just kind of existing in Meghan's orbit without any real agency or independence. The cartoon version of Harry basically follows Meghan around everywhere she goes, repeating her talking points like he's memorized a script. He mirrors her moods, reacts to situations exactly how she does, and never seems to have his own thoughts or opinions about anything. It's like he's turned into an accessory to her brand instead of being his own person with his own identity. When the real Harry saw those clips, or at least heard about them from people around him, insiders say he felt deeply uncomfortable, not angry, not outraged at the disrespect, just uneasy in this quiet, unsettling way. Because here's the thing, the cartoon characterization wasn't some wild exaggeration or completely made up.
Basically, to babysit the media so he doesn't look bad anymore. And here's the kicker. He wants Meghan Markle to officially be called...
It wasn't far from what people have been saying about Harry for years now. He's no longer acting independently. His decisions seem to come from Meghan's playbook. Somewhere along the way, he stopped being Prince Harry with his own voice and started being Meghan's husband, who goes along with whatever she's pushing at any given moment. The Harper's Bazaar feature barely even mentioned Harry, which you'd think would protect him from the fallout. But South Park still found a way to include him in the mockery because audiences don't view Meghan and Harry as separate entities these days. They're seen as a package deal. When Meghan does something that attracts criticism or turns into a punchline, Harry automatically gets pulled into it too. Even when she's doing solo interviews or appearing on magazine covers by herself, his reputation still takes a hit because they're so tightly linked in everyone's mind. It's like they share the same PR boat, and when Meghan steers it into a storm, Harry gets just as soaked as she does. This whole situation hits different for Harry because his image was already in rough shape.
Do another episode based on the court case. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Coach Agata and Stephen Senatiempo.
Before the episode even aired, polls on both sides of the Atlantic show him losing popularity at a pretty alarming rate. British audiences who once adored him now view him with disappointment or indifference. American viewers who initially welcomed him with open arms are starting to lose interest or feel frustrated with the constant media presence while claiming to want privacy. For some who watched the parody, the episode just confirmed what they'd already suspected for a while now. Harry isn't viewed as this brave prince who broke free from a restrictive system. Instead, he comes across as someone drifting through a story he doesn't seem to control, letting someone else write the script for his life. That shift in perception terrifies the advisors and PR professionals working with them. Because once people stop viewing a man as a leader or someone with genuine autonomy and instead treat him as a punchline or a guy who just goes along with whatever his partner decides,
which Stan would just roll his eyes and say, "Dude, this is total nonsense. Seriously, imagine being in the..."
Rebuilding trust takes years of consistent effort. It's not like you can just do one good interview or make one smart appearance and suddenly everyone forgets years of behavior that created that impression. The damage runs deeper than surface-level PR can fix. But what makes this whole thing even more painful for Meghan is that the episode tapped into something she's been fighting against for years. Audiences have heard her story so many times now. Oprah, Spotify, Netflix, countless magazine features that most feel like they already know every angle of it. When she releases another interview or appears on another cover, nobody feels genuinely curious about what she'll say. Instead, there's this collective sense of deja vu, like we're about to hear the same talking points with slightly different words. South Park didn't create that fatigue. The show just illustrated it in the most humiliating, visible way possible.
I don't know whose idea this was, but it's a really bad one. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's lawyers are looking into...
Once you turn into a meme instead of a real person with depth and complexity, reversing that perception takes more than another carefully staged comeback. It takes actual change, real authenticity, and a lot of time. The moment South Park started dominating headlines and trending across every social media platform, Meghan's PR team went into full panic mode. This wasn't the kind of scandal you could bury with a friendly interview or smooth over with a polished statement. Comedy hits completely different than other types of criticism. Clips spread faster because everyone loves sharing jokes. Memes stick longer because they never really die online. And worst of all, humor destroys image-building efforts that took months or even years to carefully construct. Within just a few hours, emergency calls went out trying to figure out how to contain the damage before it got even worse.
Park episode mocking Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. That is why I say I do not think that they created this, because the light in which they were painted...
Their first strategy was pretty straightforward. Say nothing and let it fade naturally. Sometimes silence works when a scandal burns hot but runs out of fuel quickly. If you just keep your head down and don't feed the fire, audiences eventually move on to the next controversy. But this situation, the clips weren't fading at all. TikTok trends were exploding. YouTube commentary channels were making videos about it. Instagram memes were flooding feeds, Twitter threads were dissecting every joke, even Facebook, where trends usually arrive late, was buzzing with discussions. Ignoring the storm at this point meant letting the parody define the entire Harper's Bazaar cover permanently. If they stayed silent too long, that episode would become the only thing anyone remembered about the magazine shoot. So they moved to their second strategy: push new positive stories to redirect attention. Some advisors suggested releasing previously unseen photos from the Bazaar shoot to get audiences talking about something else. Others wanted to pitch soft interviews to friendly outlets.
Than everything that's happened since, from Oprah Winfrey and onwards, where you've had this real...
The kind that would let Meghan discuss her humanitarian work or upcoming projects without tough questions. Get the narrative back on track. Remind viewers why they should care about her message. Shift focus away from the jokes. But several decision makers immediately shut that plan down. Their reasoning? Anything released right now would be seen as desperate damage control, and that would only make things worse. Audiences would laugh at the obvious attempt to change the subject. The timing was too transparent, too reactive. The third strategy was considered the riskiest move on the table. Have Meghan address the parody herself. Maybe acknowledge it with humor, maybe brush it off with grace, maybe use it as an opportunity to show she can laugh at herself. But this option absolutely terrified everyone in the room. Responding to satirical takedowns usually ends badly for celebrities because it signals that the joke worked, that it got under your skin, that you felt the need to defend yourself. And once audiences know their laughter hurt you...
Look, Kyle, we just kind of don't care about some dumb prince and his stupid wife.
South Park just destroyed Prince Harry, and honestly...
They don't stop. They laugh louder. They make more jokes. They push harder because they've found your weak spot. Everyone knew that any response from Meghan would just extend the story's life cycle and give comedy writers even more material to work with. According to one person close to the situation, the mood in Meghan's inner circle was tense, almost stunned. Nobody expected the backlash to be this severe or spread this quickly. They weren't sure what stung more, the parody itself or what it revealed about how the Harper's Bazaar piece had actually landed with audiences. The interview didn't connect the way Meghan believed it would. She thought it would showcase her strength, her resilience, her evolution. Instead, it came across as overly rehearsed and emotionally manipulative to a lot of viewers. That realization hit hard because it meant the problem went deeper than just one comedy show making fun of her. Her entire approach to public image was backfiring.
Attacks on the couple, South Park has taken multiple shots at Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, mocking their claims they want privacy to...
Behind the scenes, advisors tried to map out the next 30 days. What to say, what not to say, how to shift the conversation without appearing reactive or defensive. Which appearances to accept, which to decline. Whether to lean into the humanitarian angle or pull back from public view entirely for a while. Every option had massive downsides. Staying visible meant inviting more jokes. Disappearing could make her seem like she was hiding or defeated. Addressing it...
So when I say South Park destroyed Scientology and Meghan and Harry, I don't just mean it like...
directly would make things worse. Staying silent would make her appear powerless. There was no clean path forward, no obvious winning move that would make this whole mess go away. And the biggest fear hanging over all of them wasn't the parody, the tweets, or even the late-night commentary. The real fear was that another media outlet had already started digging deeper into how the Harper's Bazaar piece came together, and they were getting ready to drop something Meghan really didn't want in print. Now things get even messier, and this is where Meghan's situation goes.
Was the success of the brilliant episode of South Park, where the couple was mercilessly ridiculed. The situation is compounded by the
from bad to potentially catastrophic. A major U.S. outlet started preparing a follow-up piece on the Harper's Bazaar feature. And listen, this wasn't going to be another puff piece praising her courage or celebrating her fresh start. This wasn't another friendly profile designed to make her look good. Word started spreading that journalists were doing a deeper investigation into how the whole thing came together behind the scenes. The real story behind that carefully crafted piece was about to come out. According to early whispers, the outlet had contacted several individuals involved in the photo shoot. Journalists journalists reached out to stylists, assistants, and sources familiar with the editorial process. The questions being asked weren't soft either. Reporters wanted to know how the feature got shaped into the final version that appeared in print, understanding whether Meghan pushed for specific talking points or if certain angles came directly from her team became a priority.
Days attending prestigious events and were greeted by huge crowds and media fanfare everywhere they went. At the time, it was...
The investigation focused on why the writing sounded less like traditional journalism and more like a scripted performance. If South Park made the piece look overly theatrical and staged, this kind of investigative story could make it look outright manipulated. Get this, the show's writers even hinted during a podcast appearance that they wouldn't mind revisiting Meghan as a character if the material keeps coming. That one line set off alarms throughout her entire camp. Because here's what everyone in the entertainment industry understands. When that show creates a recurring character out of you, you don't escape it. You don't get to move past it or leave it behind. You live beside it for years, maybe even decades. Each new media appearance gets compared to their parody. Future photo shoots turn into potential material for another episode. Any attempt at reinvention gets held up against the cartoon version they've already created. It's like having a shadow version of yourself that the internet finds more entertaining than the real you.
Attempts to be private by constantly seeking attention. It's hysterically funny.
So let me start with you, Sam. You've lived a life with the world.
Those close to Meghan say her reaction to all of this went beyond anger or frustration at being mocked. What she felt was genuine terror. The realization hit that the Harper's Bazaar piece, the one thing supposed to restart her public image and give her a fresh beginning, had actually locked her into a reputation she can't control or change. She spent months planning that moment. She worked with the magazine to craft every detail, from the lighting in the photos to the language on the page. She thought she was taking charge of her story, showing the world that she was strong, resilient, evolving into something better. Instead, she handed comedy writers the perfect material to tear it all down in a matter of minutes. The big issue hanging over her now isn't whether she can bounce back from one bad week of jokes and memes. What matters is something much bigger and scarier. How do you rebuild an image when the world's already decided what the punchline is? How do you convince audiences to take you seriously when you've turned into a recurring joke?
The UK media is absolutely delusional. Harry and Meghan are not paying South Park any time.
On one of the most influential comedy shows in television history. How do you tell your story again when audiences are exhausted from hearing variations of it over and over? The Harper's Bazaar moment was supposed to answer those concerns. Instead, it made them worse. And now Meghan's stuck wondering if there's any way forward that doesn't involve becoming exactly what the parody suggested. Someone so desperate to control how people see her that she's lost touch with how the rest of the world actually views her. So, what do you think? Can Meghan ever come back from this, or is she stuck as a punchline? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. I will see you in the next one.